We're going to go ahead and get started now. Hello and welcome to Unify's webinar on SQLBase 11.6 Command Center Improvements. This is your host, Matt Brunquell. Before we get started, I want to review a few housekeeping items. For those of you new to Unify Corporation, we're a publicly traded software company, and we've been in business for over 30 years. We're known for being the first to deliver a relational database in the Unix environment, but since then we've delivered databases and development software products that run across different databases and platforms, really geared towards building and modernizing business applications, and geared to the business application developer who places a premium on productivity over low-level coding. And today our business has expanded beyond that into application modernization solutions as well. So converting from your applications from older technologies into newer technologies like Java and .NET. And but today we're going to focus in on one of our long-standing, very successful database products, which is SQLBase. So we encourage you to ask questions on the webinar. The way you do that is to use the Q&A button on your WebEx toolbar. It's the button with the question mark. There's also a chat button, but it makes it easier for Martin and I to look into one panel for the questions, just to make sure that we get to all of them. Now, I mentioned Martin Tietz. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm mentioning Martin. I've got Martin on the brain because he's our product manager, but it's Mike Van Deen. Sorry, Mike. So it's going to be Mike who's presenting our SQLBase 11.6 Command Center, and which is a great opportunity actually, because Mike is one of our senior tech support engineers, and for those of you that have worked with SQLBase for any period of time have probably spoken with Mike in the past. He has a lot of experience just even at Unify supporting our SQLBase customers, but even prior to Unify he was working on the end user side in an environment with our products. And so it's a great opportunity to have someone with his technical expertise and just exposure to the different customer requirements and environments out there speaking on this topic today. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mike for the presentation.
Thank you, Matt. Welcome, everybody. What we're going to talk about today is the improvements that we've made to the Command Center with the 11.6 version. For the agenda, very, very short agenda. I'm going to give you a brief talk about what is new with the 11.6 Command Center, and then I'm going to show it to you, and then we're going to open it up for questions and answers. So, first thing that we'll talk about is the improvements to the server display. We have tried to incorporate most of the things that SQL Console used to display into the server display. So we now have server statistics. Something that SQL Console never provided us was the ability to actually set up an audit from within the application itself, and then go through and look at the result of the audit from within the tool. So that's something that we've added to the 11.6 version. The database display information, we're now showing locks, database statistics, the process statistics in which we actually allow you to watch a process, so you can isolate a particular process and see all the cursors that are happening for that particular process directly from the cursor statistics screen. We also are showing cursor statistics, and again, these all these different statistics that we're showing, if you've used SQL Console, you'll be somewhat familiar with the bits that we're actually showing you. I believe that there were some things in the SQL Console that nobody ever really looked at. So we've just isolated the things that are somewhat important. We also allow you to set up the new roles. You can set permissions on a particular role, and then you can add users to the role. And you can do all this directly through this tool. There's also performance audits. Basically, the displays, you can show a summary of commands executed on the server. You can see the whole SQL statement in full, and all the information about what actually happened with those particular commands. You can sort by various columns, including the execution time, so you can look to see what statements are performing badly and which are performing really well. You can then have a look at the badly performing statements, say, maybe we can add some indexes here to improve the query, because when I look at a particular thing, it's not actually using an index. So you can actually look at a before and after in the audit for after you've created some indexes. So without further ado, we will go to a demo. So what I've got is the SQLBase Command Center for SQLBase 11.6 up, and if we highlight the server, you will see that we've got the normal contents, which shows the different databases that we have registered. In this case, just the island. You can see the various connections that you have to that particular server. So in this case, we've got the island and SB task going with their statuses, the command type, the process number, who is actually using it, and who it is, and any the last SQL statement that was executed for that particular connection. The audit results, which I will be getting back to once we actually populate the audit files, you can select any of the various categories of auditing that you can set up, and select by start date, end date, and it'll show you a nice display of what's actually been happening with each of those particular audits. Something new with this, however, if you're familiar with SQL Console, you would have seen this there. Server statistics. This shows you some configuration things such as cache pages that are defined, and shows you the various I/O information. We haven't really done much at this point, so we've really got not much there. Shows you cache hits and read ratios between virtual and physical reads. For the usage, you can see the cursors that you've got, any block processes, total number of processes, process switches, transaction per second, that type of thing. Shows you what kind of locks are currently on the server. Various activity information, connects, disconnects, that type of thing, and a basic profile of the server. Also at the bottom, you can see when the server was started the last time. You can see what platform you're on and what version of SQLBase. Those are all displayed as well. For the database itself, you can see you've got a drop down into each of the tables where you can see what the table looks like, all the different columns that are on the table. You can have a look at the indexes that are defined for the various tables, and what their attributes are, what columns are on the table, on the index. Look at any views, stored procedures, And one of the new things that we've got is roles. Now at this point I have no roles defined, so let's define a role for users that will have DBA capability. So we'll just set up a role called DBA, give it DBA authority, and we'll assign some users to this particular role. And these are the users that are currently defined for the island database. We can just grab a couple, put them over there. Say, yep, that's who we want in that particular role. And now you can see that we've got the DBA role set up. And if we look at the user roles, you can see that the ones that we've added are now ticked as yes, they're on that in that role. So now if we look at the island database, some of the new things that we see on the bottom, other than the contents, we now see locks, which again very similar to SQL console lock display. We also can show system objects. So that would be all the system tables that are actually in use for this particular database. And you can also show indexes. Also, another nice thing that you can do here is you can actually disconnect the process. So if you're having a look and you see that there's a particular process that is not playing nicely with anybody else, and it's got some locks that are holding things up, you don't have to write down the process number and then go back to the process window and delete the process from there. You can actually disconnect it right from here. So you don't have to go anywhere else to get rid of a badly performing process. Database statistics, it basically shows an overview of what's actually happening with the database itself, the users that are connected, how many transactions are there, how big the database is, basically, last pages allocated and written, and file size. The Process Statistics tab shows, again, process numbers, the status of what's happening with the process, selects, inserts, updates, that type of thing, total transactions, fetch time, execute time, just various statistics about that particular process. If you want to have if you want to isolate the process, you can just say, watch process. And this will give you a nice display of basically all the processes, the cursors that are attached to this particular process, including command types, type thing. And you can also have a look at the SQL that's happened for the last command for this particular process, and also an execution plan. Also gives you SQL cost, that type of thing for that. You can also, in this particular watch process, you can look to see what locks are actually currently held. And you can get a detail as well. It gives you a bit more information. But it basically shows you lock groups and things like that. You can pretty much see if there's like some S locks, shared locks, and some X locks, and see kind of what's actually holding somebody else up. For cursor statistics, you can see what, again, what connections are there. These are individual cursors. If you've used SQL Console at all, and going into the cursor of statistics, you'll actually see a lot of the same fields. Status, the relative SQL cost of what the optimizer has determined would be the lowest cost to actually get the information back for you. And this is a relative cost. It's not. There's not anything magical that you can attach to that. Pardon me. But what you can do is, as you are looking at performance enhancements, you can go in and add an index and look to see that yes, this SQL cost has gone down from something like 52 million down to 25. And you go, well, that's I think we're on to something here. You can also again view the SQL for that particular statement, and again the execution plan. And again for a cursor, you can actually disconnect the cursor directly from here, as you can do with a process as well. You can disconnect the process directly from there. What I'd like to show now is actually setting up some audits, and then we're going to populate the audit a bit with some various things, and then show you how we have a look at the audit things. So if we look at this new section, it's called Audit and Options. We'll have a look at the options. It asks for where you want to store the audit file, and I'm going to put it into a directory called Audits. I've got currently everything ticked at the moment for all the different audit types. Now, there are two different types of audits. One is a global audit, which would be like performance, transaction performance, connects and disconnects, that type of thing. And the other is two different types. There's global and there's performance. So these are the performance ones on the bottom. The global ones are like rejected logon, security violations, that type of thing. You can look at valid disconnects and connects, so you can see everybody that's actually connected and disconnected to a particular database. If you're getting some phantom connections, people that you don't know who's actually connecting, you can actually set this audit to display all this. There's a lot of different audits that you can set. The only thing you need to be aware of is that when you set audit, it does actually impact the performance of the machine, but it depends on what things that you get as to how much performance hits you get. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start a global audit. And what this actually does is this will create, for example, in my audits directory, it'll create two files. One is a global audit that's going to hold all the information about the global, and one that's a performance audit that's going to hold all the performance. It also goes into the SQL ini file, and it puts in two audit statements, one for global, one for performance. And for the global, you'll see that it's actually put in all the different categories that we have available. So there's 1 through 10. For the performance, we've done 1 through 3. So we currently have all the audits turned on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in and we're going to run a couple of statements. So just basically We'll set the server, and we'll create a brand new database. We'll then try to connect to that with an invalid password to get a login audit incorrect. So it should come back, oh, that's an invalid password. So we'll do it again, this time with a valid password. So we'd actually connect. We'll just do a backup and put that again to our audits directory. Doesn't really have anything, but basically it's going to fill up our audit file. Create a column, commit that. Do an insert into that. We'll do an update. And this might be a good time to just pop back to here and have a look at some of the statements that we actually have as far as the database tabs. Now I've just created a new database, so I really need to register that in order to have a look at it. So this is test 2 that I just created. We'll connect to it. And if I now go to test 2, I can have a look at locks that are in place. So we've got an X lock because we've done an insert. We've also done an update. Database statistics. Just you can see it's still a relatively small database. Process statistics. We can have a look at do a watch of that process. See that we've got RL locks. There's our update statement. Have a look at the SQL update. And in this case, since we've only got one row there, it probably would not be using any kind of indexes or anything on there to do this. Again, locks will just show that we've got a couple of X locks, an X lock and an S lock in place. Looking at cursor statistics, you can see that we've got, there's the select group name. This one is the statement that does the update, which was the last statement that we had there. The execution plan is just reading test. Okay, so now we'll go back and we'll put a few more things into our audit. Do a select. We'll roll back the transactions, so the inserts and updates and things all get rolled back. We'll disconnect everything, shut the server off, and get out of SQL Talk. Okay, now, if we go back to here and have a look at the audit results, we can now select rejected login, and that shows that for database test 2, at this time, there was a error 404. The client name of who actually tried to get in. And again, you can select as many or as few of these as you want, and it will show you everything that's currently selected. So for valid log-on, log-off, here's log-on and log-off to our database. Connects and disconnects. So we've got connecting to the server, connecting to the test database, disconnecting from the server. For database operations, there is our create of the database itself. Recovery operations, here's the rolling back of the 2 separate transactions that we had. is our backup snapshot that we did, and all the information about it, who did it, user ID that was logged on. Don't believe we had any deadlocks or timeouts. Nope, those aren't shown. Table queries, so here's the selects that we've done. Updates, inserts, and then we have some performance things. So performance of the connects and disconnects. At this point, it's very, very fast. So, but this is where you would look to see if you had any problems if people are trying to connect or disconnect and it's taking absolutely forever. This would actually be where you could actually see that. SQL performance would show all the different things that you've actually done and how much time it actually took. Again, execution time very, very, very low at this point because we're only really doing some very simple things. But you can use that, this particular display, you can sort it by the actual command itself and have a look at details about that to see what's being used and what's not. And then here's your actual transaction performance. And what this shows is the amount of time that is spent between starting up a transaction and doing a commit. So for example, in this particular one, basically it took 1 minute and 18 seconds for everything that we did to that. This one took 2 minutes and 50, basically 2 minutes from the time that we started that to the time that we actually did the rollback. So that is really basically what I'd like to show you. And I guess what I'd like to do now is ask for any questions that you've got.
Great. So we'll go ahead and start the Q&A. So the way, again, that you ask questions is use the Q&A button on your WebEx toolbar. It's the button with the question mark. We'll go silent for maybe 30 seconds here to give you a chance to post some questions. I see some already coming in. And we'll come back on in 30 seconds and start going through the questions. Thanks. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. Excuse me. We're going to go ahead and get started. So the first question is, when will 11.6 be available? And Mike, I don't know what you've heard, but what I have seen is we're going to have it available in October, in the second half of October, basically. So right before our DevCons that are coming up here worldwide. Next question. Can I use Command Center on remote databases?
Certainly. There's no problem. There shouldn't be any problems with that at all. You should be able to connect to any pretty much any server, I believe. Remote databases, local databases, shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, I think that's something that's really nice for our ISVs out there. From just a support and standpoint, when they have all those embedded databases out there, customer sites, they can do things from without having to deploy people in the field everywhere. Next question: are there new SQL statements for setting up roles, or does it have to be done through the Command Center?
Certainly, the new SQL statements can be done through SQL Proc. That you do not have to do it through the Command Center. In fact, we have a quick look at the Ireland database, if we have a look at the, not that one. Okay, where are you? Sorry. Being hidden by my, all right, SQL Script. This will actually show, this SQL Script tab actually shows the things that have actually been done for that particular database, SQL and things that have been done on a global basis. So here you can actually see the actual statements that were generated when I clicked on the various things. So there I've created the role DBA, I've granted DBA to the role, and I've granted the role DBA to the two different users. Okay, so nice thing about having the SQL script is that if you have to do these basic commands for, say, 5 or 6 databases that you've got sprinkled throughout, it doesn't necessarily have to be for roles, but you can actually highlight all these, put them into a file that SQL Talk can then run. You can then deploy all these statements, execute all these statements on the various databases that you need to put them to.
All right. Next question. Is SQLBase Treasury 11.6 going to be released at the same time? You know, I don't know the answer to that. Do you, Mike?
I believe it will be.
Okay.
I really don't see any real major differences in those products and why it wouldn't be released.
Right, it's just one is encrypted. Okay, so the answer to that we believe is yes, and I can always go validate that. All right, next question. Is SQLBase 11.6 certified for Windows 7?
Certainly. It should run on just about any platform. In fact, one of the things that SQLBase 11.6 is going to have is 64-bit native drivers. So for all you people that have 64-bit platforms and you need to connect using ODBC, and you don't now have to go in and do special setups to actually set things into the 32-bit WoW, whatever it is, to actually use SQLBase to SQLBase ODBC. We'll have 64-bit drivers, which also means you can do connectivity using 64-bit Visual Studio applications and that type of thing.
Great. Now the last question I have, if there are other ones, it's okay to keep posting them, but this is the last one we have on the list right now. Is there any functionality in SQL Console that is not in the Command Center?
Not that I can think of. We've gone through pretty much with a fine-tooth comb and tried to get everything into there, plus some things that weren't in SQL Console.
All right. Well, good. I don't see any other questions, so we're going to start wrapping up the webinar, but if you think of another one, you have a little bit of time here to post it. So first of all, Mike and I want to thank you for participating in the webinar. We hope you found it useful and good information. When you exit the webinar, there's a 30-second survey. Please let us know what you thought, any ideas for future webinar topics. If there are particular things you expected and didn't get, or things that you liked in particular, let us know. We use that input to drive these monthly webinars, and we do these every month. For this time of year, it's important for you to know about the upcoming DevCons that we have worldwide, and we do have folks on the webinar today from both Europe and North America. So just so you know, we've got the Europe DevCons coming up in November in Stockholm and Berlin, and then we have the ones in North America. Now, in the last few years, we've just done one in North America at our headquarters in Roseville, and so we're having that one again at our headquarters, because some folks like to get to the headquarters and also meet management and some of the support engineers and developers. But we're also taking it to the road. And so we're going to have one on the East Coast in Virginia, conveniently located between Dulles and Reagan Airport. We're also going to be doing 2 in Canada, as well as the one in Mexico City that you see on the slide here. The ones in North America are one-day shows. That's based on feedback from our attendees, and they're very much going to be centered around the Team Developer 6.0 release with the .NET capabilities. But we will be talking about the roadmaps for products like SQLBase in one session. So, but keep that in mind. I know some of these folks that are on today on the SQLBase also use Team Developer, so it's a great opportunity to see what all we're doing with the Team Developer. And then other than that, let us know if there's upcoming topics you'd like to see, and we hope to see you at one of the DevCons here in the next few months. Thank you.
Thank you.